naps? What's wrong with naps?
Naps for old people. I'm young and I'm up.
This country was ruined by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You're fat.
What is a brewed alcoholic beverage consisting of barley and yeast?
Well, I don't know. Usually you just have a beer.
It's the Al Travis Show. We're lucky to have our next guest. He is John Hinderaker, president of American Experiment. John, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great.
You got your scandal tracker guy ready to rock and roll. The numbers are going to go through the roof. I'll talk about that in a minute, but lots going on. We don't talk enough national stuff with others, so I'd like to hit you up with it because I think this is in your wheelhouse. Has the president lost his edge, his I don't know, the chips he had with his Epstein trial? You know, I'm going to release all the stuff, and Bondi had it on her desk, and then all of a sudden they said nothing to see here. Has he lost some real conservatives?
Well, I hope not, Al. I think it was very foolish of Trump, as well as Pam Bondi, who joined in, I believe, to talk about releasing all the Epstein files. Raw, unredacted files of criminal investigations, to my knowledge, are never released. The investigation files contain all kinds of stuff. They contain hearsay, they contain false assertions made about other people, they contain claims that turn out to be untrue, they contain information about people that might be embarrassing to them but is not criminal. And we want people to be able to talk to police officers without having to worry that a year or two later something they say is going to wind up in the newspapers, right?
Sure.
And so, you don't see raw, unredacted files, to my knowledge, ever being just dumped on the public. Not long ago, President Trump ordered that the files on the JFK assassination be made public 60 years after the fact. And I don't know to what extent they will be redacted and so forth before they are put out to the public. So I think it was unwise for Trump and Bondi to talk the way they did about releasing Epstein files. And my guess is that the reality has now dawned on them. Also, I don't know, Al, what the legal framework is around investigation files at the federal level. It varies from state to state, and I don't know what the legal framework is at the federal level. I assume you can't just get them with the FOIA request, or else somebody would have done that a long time ago. But there's a good reason why government entities do not normally, or ever to my knowledge, just release unredacted police investigation files. And I think it's unfortunate that this has turned into kind of an albatross around the neck of Donald Trump. I mean, Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Epstein was a Democrat. He donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign, Chuck Schumer's campaign, others. The only politician with whom he's known to have had really any relationship is Bill Clinton. Yeah. So it's kind of ironic that, this thing is now resting in Donald Trump's lap.
I think something has to happen. Again, you're right. If it's all this legal Spiegel stuff, we can't just, frame everybody. Your name can't have Epstein's lips, so you're guilty of something. But I think we have to see someone tried for something in all this, right? Somehow they're flying to islands, or pedophilia supposedly, and child prostitution, and people want something out of this. If anything, you got to have a trial so we can all see, no, it really didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Right now, we think this is the devil's island, and nothing's happening.
I don't know who's out there who can be identified, and as to whom the statute of limitations is not run. I don't know when these acts occurred. What's the statute of limitation? I really don't know. They prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein. He pled guilty, was lightly punished, most people think, including me. They tried Ghislaine Maxwell, basically for procuring underage girls for Epstein. There was no great revelation in that trial about dozens of congressmen, whatever. And they were preparing to try Epstein when he hanged himself in a prison cell. I don't know whether there are any other criminal charges that plausibly could be brought at this time or not.
That's fair enough. All right, other trial things that I want to talk about again. This Vance Belzer, the alleged shooter, and I say that the alleged shooter of Hoffman's and the Hortmans. I say alleged. They get him. He's got a letter in his car saying, "Well, he shot these people." He pled not guilty yesterday, And he has every right to do that. I get it. He wants his trial. But I want to ask you, what's the moral thing the news should do? We have to talk about it. The Star Trib put his whole letter down in the paper. I think they have to do that sort of thing. The New York Post actually has somebody talking to him back and forth and asking him questions, and he's putting out there, oh, they only released half the information. You wait. I think he wants to be famous. I think that's what he's done. In some ways, we're helping him do that. What's our job?
Well, we see this dilemma over and over, Al. We see it with mass shooters who we know their motivation is they want to go down in history. They read about other like school shooters, mass shooters of various kinds. They study them, they revere them, and they tend to be nobodies, people with no accomplishments in life who want to become famous, want to go down in history. And a lot of people have said that the news media should stop printing their names. Don't print their names and take away that incentive. And I think this Walter situation is in that category. This guy obviously is a nut. Now, he wrote this memo to the FBI in which he said that Tim Walz told him to murder Amy Klobuchar. Of course, she was not one of the people that he actually attacked. And obviously that's untrue. No one takes that seriously. But some people have said, well, he probably wrote that memo trying to build a case for an insanity defense because it's obviously crazy. Well, I don't know. I don't know why he wrote it. And I think he is like so many criminals by the normal meaning of the word. He's crazy. There's no doubt about it.
100%.
And so what does the press do about that? If they suppress information, then immediately you get conspiracy theories, you know.
It's true.
And if they publicize a lot of information, you can say, well, you're playing into the hands of this killer.
Yeah. Again, you're 100% correct. I just don't know what the right answer is because this guy is a loon. You read that letter, it doesn't make a whole lot of comprehensive sense. He is trained by the CIA, but off the books, and then he's got to be the worst trained CIA guy of all time. He reminds me of my wife when I watched The Unknown. Liam Neeson, he was a trained killer who knocked his head and couldn't remember he was a trained killer. Yeah, I think he watched one too many of those movies, and that's what I'm trained now because it's not a joke. Even he shot the Hoffman 17 times. No trained assassin is going to get that and have them both survive. My point is he's not trained. He's a loon. Walz did not ask him to shoot anybody. And then, okay, let's say this is Walz. You were correct. He did. Why did you not go for it then? You went for two people that have nothing to do with the guy is nuts. He's certifiably off the charts, my opinion.
Well, there's no question about it. And, what it comes down to then is the legal definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Because these people, they're all crazy, in the way you or I would use that term.
Yes.
And the question then becomes, okay, he is crazy, we say in quotes,
Yeah.
Does he meet the legal definition of insanity or not? And I have no idea what that answer ultimately is going to be as to this guy.
But this will be dragging on now for years. I mean, this is going to change Minnesota politics. First off, we already know that because of what has happened with the deaths and the Hoffmans being hurt. So things are going to change with his legacy. But how long does this drag on? I mean, that's a federal case. I mean, we'd be talking years down the road still using this guy's name.
Well, he could. As I understand it, he's been charged at the federal level with crimes that could carry the death penalty. Whether the feds will ask for the death penalty is as yet unknown, a decision not yet made. If they do, and if a jury should convict him and he should be sentenced to the death penalty, well, then he goes into the 20-year or whatever, endless appeal cycle. So, one way or another, this case could be with us for a long time.
All right. The other case that makes the news, and we're going to discuss it here in just a matter of moments, of course, is the case with Senator Mitchell. And we'll chat about what's going on with that because the prosecution has rested as of yesterday. We'll talk with John Hinderaker right after this.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
There are many ways to explore Alexandria. Some like to experience the outdoors and all the fun winter in Minnesota can provide. Pick your favorite way to get in touch with nature. Others like to explore downtown in the warm comfort of a boutique or gathered around a table with friends. You can do all of that or relax and do nothing at all. Come explore Alexandria. Start planning at explorealex.com.
Easily offended? The Al Travis Show is not for you. The Al Travis Show. All sides are welcome.
John, you're a lawyer, right? I'm holding against you. I'm not being mean.
Well,
you're a
I'm
lawyer,
retired
right?
from that business, but I practiced law for 41 years. Yeah.
Okay, so I was with this Senator Mitchell trial. Seriously, I wanted this. She said early on, once you hear my side, you'll understand it all come. And I really hoped for that. In that, because if it's not that, it seems a little on the cray-cray side as well. Dressing in black, sneaking into your mother's home, all of that. Well, we get to the trial. The defense and the prosecution lay out their groundwork. What do you call those first statements? And it sounds like they're going with, it was just a welfare check. So I'm waiting. You watch the prosecution do everything they've got, including showing the videos and stuff. Sir, I don't know what kind of rabbit they can pull out of their hat. This is not a welfare check.
You know, it's really unbelievable. The most interesting thing that's come out is that body cam footage finally got released. It hadn't been released until the trial. It lasts for about a half hour. And you see her being apprehended, hiding in the basement of her stepmother's home, dressed up as a cat burglar, you know, with the black stocking cap and the flashlight with the black cloth over it, and her shoes stuck under the stairs so she can creep around. I mean, it's the most interesting thing to me about that body cam footage is, to me, she doesn't come across all that unsympathetically. You know, she's kind of down and disheartened, and she's cooperative. And she tells her story. We'll get to that in a moment. But it's obvious that the police officer isn't having it at all. No. You know, he comments on her clothes, wonders, why are your shoes stuck under the stairs? You know, and she gets charged. But what she says to the police officers is she was there to collect some mementos of her father, namely a couple of photographs and a plaid shirt. Well, that story has now changed, and her lawyer, in his opening statement, says it was a wellness check, you know, and he says our defense is that there isn't a clear roadmap for helping a disabled parent or an elderly parent or something like that, right? And I don't know how you can take that characterization and put it next to the video footage of her, being arrested, so yeah, it'll be an interesting. The real question, or a real question, I guess, is will she testify?
Yeah.
Will she get on the stand and try to convince the jury that really she was up to something good?
Well, and if she can pull that off, two things in your opinion, I'm going to ask you. If she can't pull it off, obviously she gets found guilty, I got to imagine she has to resign or the Senate will boot her out, right? Fine. And then we'll have another election. But if she pulls some rabbit out of the hat, if there's some story that says, wow, now I get it. I don't know how you talk, but if she gets that, let's say that's true and she doesn't get kicked out of the Senate, can she win again? I don't know how many folks, if you've dealt with Alzheimer's or all, thought that welfare check, that sneaking into the basement was the best way of doing that. Anyone buys that. I don't know that her judgment is now not completely clogged. Could she win again?
Well, you hope not, Al. I mean, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. But in today's world, who knows?
Okay.
It's a crazy situation. She has been casting for the last 2 sessions the decisive vote in the Minnesota Senate. After she got apprehended, caught red-handed, hiding in her stepmother's basement after breaking into her house, which she doesn't deny, the Senate took a vote on whether she would be allowed to vote for the rest of the session, and the Democrats needed her. They didn't have time for a special session. She cast the deciding vote. It was 44-43 in favor of letting her vote, and she cast the deciding vote on whether she could vote. Well, then as soon as the session is over, Tim Walz and Ken Martin and all the DFLers say this is unacceptable. She's got to resign. And she says, no, she doesn't resign.
I'm in.
Then the trial gets continued so that she can participate in the 2025 legislative session. And she does, once again, casting the decisive vote in the Senate over and over and over again. And finally, she goes on trial. And it seems to me, Al, that the whole way that this has played out is in itself a scandal for Minnesota politics.
Oh, don't disagree. And the scandals keep going. Your fraud tracker is going to go off the charts. Go AmericanExperiment.org and check it out. I just want to throw this out here the last 2 minutes, sir. The feds raided a bunch of folks for another fraud instance. This is in Housing Stability Act, which is through Medicaid here in Minnesota. I'll just throw out the numbers. When it started in 2020, they appointed $2.6 million to help these folks out. Okay. This year, it's over $100 million, 50 times bigger than in just 5 years ago. And no one could figure out there's fraud going on, John. Hello? It's the same thing over and over again. Watch, rinse, repeat.
There's so much fraud in Minnesota's government, Al, that you can't even keep track of it all. And what's going on here is they're not helping people to actually pay for housing. This is paying people who claim that they have been counseling homeless people on how to get housing, which they can get paid for. I think it's up to 150 hours of. It's $70 an hour. And so it's basically identity fraud. They'll come up with names of some homeless people and generate fake documents, say, oh, I talked to this person for 6 hours about how to rent an apartment or whatever, and bill the state for it. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's hard to believe it's the same hoax all the time. You just got to come up with names. Tell us the names, we'll start sending checks. We don't have to know if you ever actually did anything. We can go through go to the scandal tracker on AmericanExperiment.org and check it out. One last thing, you got to tell us about it if you can. You've got more of your events going on. Just want to make sure we hit them with the last minute. You've got a Minnesota Doge, Cut the Waste, Save the Budget in Coon Rapids. That's coming up on the 21st.
Yep.
What else
Edina. I'm going to be in Edina on the 22nd. That's at 5 p.m. So is Coon Rapids. And then the final program on Minnesota's budget will be the 29th, 5 p.m. in Buffalo. If you haven't seen this show, it's really worth your time. Yeah.
Everybody's raving about it. John, I appreciate you being on. We'll bust down this whole scandal thing as the feds do it. You guys track this stuff like nobody's business. We'll understand it when it's all said and done and shakes out. But it's just, I don't know how a governor can run for a third term when every other week we find another scandal. When I say we, it shows up.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota is more beset with fraud and scandal probably than any other state.
All right, we'll bust that down. Appreciate you, John. John Hinderaker with the American Experiment, AmericanExperiment.org.
Tired of one-sided media and divisive noise drowning out your conservative values?